Na mukhang talagang mabagal ang internet sa area ko ngayon. Bakit kaya? Ngayon naman hindi gumagana itong live natin. Hindi tayo nakapag-live. Bakit kaya? What's going on? Sinasabotage na yata tayo. Wala, ayaw mag-live dito sa kabila. Oh. What's going on? Play mo internet. Nakita niyo ba ako sa Facebook? Guys, di ko nakikita yung sarili ko eh. Anyway, di ko naman kailangan makita sa sarili ko. Ang kailangan ko lang malaman is kung nandyan pa tayo sa Facebook. Oh, wala nga. Ewan ko what's going on here. Ano pa nangyayari dito? Bakit di gumagana itong internet natin? Ano kayong... I don't know guys. Ewan ko ano nangyari. Ba't di gumagana yung internet natin? Ang bilis naman na ito. Ano kaya nangyari dito? Oh, nakikita naman daw tayo ni iba. Anyway. Okay na. Hindi ko lang nakikita sarili ko. But as long as you guys see me, yun lang naman. Okay. Let's get the ball rolling, guys. Ito na. This is it. Gumising tayo ng maaga kanina. 8 a.m. pa tayo. Dire-diretsong kasi dami nangyari. Daming ganap today. Obviously, right off the bat today, yung discussion natin is a bit geopolitics. At today, actually kanina lang, I would argue that Marcos Jr. perhaps presented his most important speech yet as far as foreign policy is concerned. Siya yung naging unang Filipino president to serve as the keynote speaker dyan sa Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. Di tayo invited this year. I don't know why. Anong basihan nila? Charot. I'm glad that at least there's a Filipino voice there. And as far as the speech goes, the speech I think was kung sino nagsulat yan, magaling in a sense that all the key points, everything important that we were expecting from the president were mentioned there. So that is very, very encouraging. Pwede natin pag-usapan yan. In the meantime, guys, pag-usapan natin quickly itong case of Donald Trump. Obviously, some of you kanina nag-eavesdrop kayo. Pasensya na kung may mga delay, hindi ko hawak yung exact time of mga interviews and all. Pero nag-eavesdrop kayo dun sa discussion natin. Yan, si Ronald Llamas din ang kasama natin dun sa StoryCon sa One News with si Amy and Patrick. Pinag-usapan natin itong implication ng itong this latest conviction na yan. Ayan, at least nakikita ko dito sa sarili ko on this side. Okay, so eto na, official na. Hindi na ito alleged. Hindi na yung ano yung favorite natin? Di umano. Hindi na ganon. Okay, so now it's final, guys. Found guilty na talaga si Trump. So he's technically speaking a criminal right now, right? So he was found guilty on all charges by the jury. There was a little bit of delay a while ago. Kahapon actually. And people were wondering if there's if nagkaroon ng hung jury, na nagkaroon ng disagreements or divisions within jury because of the lack of weight of evidence, etc. But it looks like it was not only unanimous but on all counts, more or less, 'di ba? Natalo ito si Donald Trump. So officially, ito na. He's a criminally convicted person, and in that sense, he's the first ex-American president, right? Once again, may bago na naman ng record ito. Trump once again makes history. Ilang beses na siya na-impeach? Twice na ba siya na-impeach almost, right? And now naman, the only ex-president to be charged with a crime, convicted of crime rather. But, here's the rub. That's not gonna stop him for running for office. In fact, interestingly, the exact sentence will be announced by the judge. I think only 5 days before yung official nomination or crowning ceremony for Donald Trump for the so-called MAGA party. I'm sorry, Republican Party, right? I don't know kung Republican Party pa rin tawag natin dyan. MAGA Party, actually, I think is more accurate, or Trump Family Party, or whatever you want to call it. So, interestingly, the sentence will come down just few days before he's officially going to be the nominee of one of the two major parties in the United States for the presidency of arguably still the most important country on earth. That is not a value judgment, just that's just American weight in terms of its economy and even more its military on the global stage, no? So kaya kahit Pilipino tayo, kahit di tayo Amerikano or whatever, kahit Amerikano yung iba na walang pake sa politika, you have to care because we are in completely uncharted territories. We have never had this. Last time I checked, in any major democracy, although in fairness, Donald Trump will not become the first presidential nominee to run from jail, right? So, roughly 100 years ago, there was another American presidential candidate who ran more or less from jail. So, even if makulong siya, right, still that's not going to stop him based on the Constitution or certain interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. So, if you're thinking that this conviction is the end of his run for the presidency or his potential return to power, nah. Legally speaking, you can easily say that that's not the case. Yung ibang cases niya, including dun sa January 6 insurrection case, this is going to the Supreme Court, and as you know, the Supreme Court ay stacked with conservatives, no? In fact, I think this is the most conservative and Catholic American Supreme Court in recent history, if ever, right? So Trump can be quite confident that when cases go to the Supreme Court, things will not necessarily turn out against him in a significant way, or at least he should be more optimistic than none. Not dito naman dun sa conviction niya, he still can appeal it, and as far as Trump is concerned, he is the master of some would say disaster, but he's also a master of evading, right? Accountability, if you can say that. Ilang taon na, ilang dekada na, ilang controversy na, ilang scandal na, ilang ng charges, ganon. That guy never spent a single day in prison. Now, in fact, many would argue that there's a very low chance na he will in fact spend time in prison, even if let's say matalo yung appeal niya, right? Even if matalo yung appeal niya, even if lahat na yan mangyari, it's very unlikely that he'll spend time in jail because for some of the legal analysts and for some of the legal journalists that covered the court case and followed yung presiding judge, his language, his demeanor, his approach, the fact that we're talking about an ex-president who could become the next president, it's very likely that if ever the sentence comes down, at most it's under 1 year of detention, which by the way can be appealed. But it's also possible na hindi carcerative or incarceration yung mangyari sa kanya. Again, dito sa Pilipinas, we're very, very familiar with this situation, right? We're very, very familiar with this situation. Ex-presidents or presidents going to supposedly jail, next thing you know, house arrest lang yun, iba, or nasa golden cage sila or something like that. So, it's highly likely that, some of you mentioned that baka lang yan, house arrest, some sort of other punitive measures na will not involve detention or incarceration. So, kaya honestly, hindi ko maintindihan bakit yung mga iba sobrang excited sila kagad, etc. But probably, my understanding is, they are excited not because they're sure that this will prevent Trump from becoming the next president. If anything, I think everyone admits na baka ang mangyari pa dito, baka magkaroon pa ng backlash and lalo mag-harden yung support kay Trump because now he's going to really present himself as a kind of a victim, right? So in that context, I think no one should, and from many people I'm checking on the other side, mukhang no one has any illusions na this is the end of the story. Having said that, I think it's important for a lot of Democrats that at least now definitive, now you can say this guy has been criminally convicted, right? It's a big difference to just throw out, stuff there because sasabihin na kabila, bakit naman si Hunter Biden? Bakit naman si Bill Clinton? Bakit naman? Well, none of those guys were not criminally convicted, on 36 cases or whatever like that, right? So I think at the symbolic level that's important. I think it's also important for Democrats because ngayon ang maging diskurso. And I think I said that like 7, 8 hours ago. And then kanina I was looking at the news and Whoa, interesting. That's exactly what's happening right now. So the Biden administration's campaign strategy right now is to say na ang darating na election ng Amerika hindi ukol sa Republican versus Democrats. And it's not even about culture wars, conservative versus liberal. It's not even about who's pro-Russia or anti-China or pro-Ukraine and anti-Ukraine, or it's not about that. It's about whether you want a president who's criminally convicted and who can still run because of how the geniuses who framed the Constitution allowed for this potential eventuality, or you want someone who's not perfect, who's questionable, hindi ka sang-ayon sa kanya, medyo matanda-tanda na, medyo hindi ka sigurado kung, but nevertheless, go for it. So now I think the narrative completely changes. The narrative entirely changes. Because now it's a question of naniwala ka ba sa justice system sa Amerika at okay ka ba na isang criminally convicted person will be your president. So this is a very different equation from what would have been otherwise. What would have been otherwise is, Biden throwing, accusations against Trump, Trump throwing back accusation at him. Bakit? Ganon, di ba? What about? Mga whataboutism. But now, one is criminally convicted, the other one is not, di ba? So what's going to happen here is the Trump camp is going to be more aggressive, more vengeful, and some would say even more threatening to whatever is left of American democracy. Kasi ang strategy ng Trump campaign is to attack the judge, potentially down the road, who knows, maybe attack the jury also. I didn't see that as much dun sa kanyang press conference, but he seemed very angry. He seemed very grim. He seemed very vengeful. And for anyone among us who has bothered to actually watch Trump's speeches over the past 6, 7, 8 months, aside from the fact na hindi lang si Biden ay medyo may mga, alam mo na, what you notice with Trump is hindi siya kasing entertaining, if I can put it. I mean, again, I definitely do not agree with his version of entertainment, with some of the really racist, nativist stuff that comes out of his mouth. But the reality is that if you look at this 2016 campaign, even the 2020 campaign to a certain degree, may pagka Zarzuela, carnivalesque, di ba? May mga ganun. Ngayon, his speeches are angry man speeches, and old angry man speeches. The system is rigged. Everyone is after us. The US is going to hell. Actually, very similar to language of Digong. Especially yung language of Digong in terms of, pag ako ang hindi nanalo, ako yung huling barahan ng Pilipinas. Pag hindi ako nanalo, maging narco state na tayo, matapos ng Pilipinas, magko-collapse ng Pilipinas. Is that very kind of a dark imagery approach. He did that before, of course, in 2016 also. And yung speech niya, yung inauguration address na, di ba? He said, yung carnage and all of that. But if you look at his speeches more, mas grabe, mas aggressive, mas anti-system. And that's why many people are wondering na baka he will try to do to the American political system what the likes of Duterte did, what the likes of Modi have been doing to India, or Bolsonaro tried to do in Brazil, right? Of course, they're very different individuals. Of course, they're in very different contexts. You cannot compare American political system in terms of the robustness of their democratic institutions to the Philippines. I understand that. But I'm having a hard time not seeing a Donald Trump 2.0 not going all the way against Biden, against anyone who's working at DOJ right now, against the judge, against the jury, especially if he becomes the president, against, my goodness, I mean, against anyone who's perceived not to be on the MAGA side. This is going to be a very vengeful side. And you know where this could end, right? This is a slippery slope. This is a rabbit hole. This is going to be a very dangerous situation, right? Now, obviously, if you're pro-Trump, you're going to say, tama lang yan. Let's really drain, let's really drain the whole Washington, D.C. political system of this supposed crooked establishment politicians, blah, 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 right? So it's a very dark, aggressive, and increasingly authoritarian, if not only illiberal kind of populism. And that's why if you look at the passions of pro-Trump supporters, I see them a lot here in comment sections. Pati kanina, ang dami mga pro-Trump na Filipino. Pag-usapan natin mamaya, or mga Filipino-American for that matter. So yung mga supporters ni Trump ngayon are even more angry, even angrier at the system than they were in 2016, right? And ang approach talaga ni Trump ngayon is to present himself as a kind of a martyr, right? A martyr of a totally broken, corrupt system, and that you need nothing less than a complete overhaul of the the American political system. So doon, pwede mo sabihin na medyo, wow, we might get into really deep, dark waters here, right? Or for some people, we're getting into exciting times if you're against, of course, the Democrats on the other side, right? Now, on the Biden side, their argument would be, my goodness, this other guy really doesn't want to go to jail. He knows that if he doesn't win the presidency, most likely he's going to face multiple cases. He's probably going to face some sort of political decline or marginalization. I mean, I doubt that. I think Trump is kind of a a political hero to a lot of Americans, etc. For a long time, some would say cult, right? But the Biden team would say, even if you don't like me, kahit ayaw nyo sa akin, kahit matanda na ako, kahit sa tingin nyo hindi tama yung ginawa ko, kahit sa tingin nyo hindi ganun kagaling yung handling ko ng inflation whatsoever, if you don't vote for me, you're voting for the end of the American democracy. The American democracy is not perfect. There are a lot of problems with it. Obviously, he's going to blame the Republicans in the Congress. He's going to blame conservative judges in the Supreme Court. A number of them, 3 of them appointed by Donald Trump. And now nasira yung balance ng Supreme Court. So that will be the rhetoric from Biden. So sa aking palagay, this will be even more toxic and even more high stakes and even more consequential elections than 2020. And in that scenario, I think there will be even more contestation, not only polarization, not only discourse, not only marites, whoever wins, especially if the margins are so close. And speaking of the polls, yes, I saw the latest polls and the averages and median of mga different polls. At lahat ng yan nagpapakita na Donald Trump is gaining an edge over Biden. But I also agree with some of our friends, including with Hunter Marston, who I talked to yesterday, from La Trobe and previously from Brookings Institutions and Carnegie. He was joining us from Rhode Island. I do agree that there's also a possibility na as Trump becomes more aggressive and directly questioning the American political system, it will be easier for Biden to tell a lot of disaffected Democrats that, yes, I know you don't like me. Yes, maybe you don't like my Gaza policy. Maybe you don't like my withdrawal from Afghanistan. Maybe you don't like, some of my economic policies, etc. Maybe you don't even like me, right? But my goodness, I may be 4 out of 10. This guy is negative 10, right? So I'm still the better deal here. And it's possible, and I think this is the argument I'm hearing from a lot of people, is that if you look at the surveys right now, while they're close enough to the elections, and they're the worst for an incumbent in recent memory, his numbers of Biden are way worse than Obama heading into second term. I think, comparable probably to Carter in 1979, 1980, heading into the elections in 1980. But I also agree with some strategies na baka nangyari dito, there are many who are just signaling to Biden na you're not gonna win our votes by just saying I'm not Trump. You have to really do something. Change your policy on Gaza. Do something more significant on climate policy. Do something more significant, let's say, on immigration. Of course, from a progressive stance, from a more democratic stance. So it's very possible na etong movement in favor of Trump will dissipate in the coming months. Ang problem ko kasi dito is pag titignan mo yung mga polls sa US over the past 10 years or so, especially since elections in 2012, I would say, no? This election is going to be decided by what? Who knows? 50, 60, 70,000 votes spread across 4 or 5 battleground states, right? Arizona, Florida, Georgia, or Michigan, Pennsylvania. So you can look at it 5 or 6 states. Although my sense is Florida is going to be more red. Probably Arizona has crossed the line. Maybe Georgia is still there. Then it's Michigan. Then it's so Pennsylvania, Ohio, right? So it's going to be really, really, really a long night come election night in November. Kasi yun nga, we might not know on the election night. In fact, on the morning of next day, it's going to be like last time, probably even worse, right? If the current trend lines continue. Unless something really drastic happens that makes one party just so dominant in 3 or 4 out of the 6 or 7 battleground or swing states. So this is just an incredible situation. That's why I think it's premature to say tapos ng laban. mananalo si Biden kasi Trump ganyan. I think that's absolutely wrong. But I think it's also absolutely wrong to say, oh, Trump is already leading in all of this, based on this survey, which is just a snapshot, and that this will hold all the way to November, even after this conviction case coming out. Because if you look at Trump, as I said kanina, diba? I was in South Carolina, I was in Georgia, then I went to California. I was in Washington D.C. this year, and I talked to a lot of people. I don't claim to have done my scientific survey, but I talk to people, whether it's Uber driver, whether it's whether it's tour guide, Republican, ex-military, ex-government, Democrat, student, immigrant, newly arrived Americans, Latino, Middle Eastern American, Asian American, obviously Caucasian American, all of those people. So my sense is really the problem of Biden is there's no enthusiasm for him whatsoever, and at the same time with Trump also, there was also this element of major radioactive. So my sense is the radioactivity of Trump has already increased because of this. So it might turn off some of the, let's just call them skeptical Republicans and skeptical independents. But does it necessarily mean that they'll vote for Biden? I have a doubt also about that. So this is where the second part of my point comes in. My sense is this whole drama around Trump's guilty verdict and all of the extreme rhetoric that is going to come out of both sides. One side saying we want to prevent a criminal dictator from coming to power. The other side saying the whole system is rigged. This is a conspiracy. Ours is not just a candidate, but no less than no less than a martyr. This is where I think what's important to keep in mind is the third party candidate. For me, the big question was, what will the number one third party candidate? And that is, of course, RFK Jr., right? Kennedy Jr. How is he gonna look at this issue? Ayun naman, nagko-comment na naman yung mga haters. I don't even have access to CNN, okay? I don't watch cable news and all that. Wala akong cable, wala akong TV, etc. Nagbasa naman tayo ng konti. Medyo nagta-travel naman tayo around the world, diba? Now, for me, the important thing here is how will the third-party candidates, particularly RFK, take advantage of the situation? So the big question for a long time is, unang-una, does RFK has a chance? I really doubt that. Pangalawa, but does RFK have a chance to be a major spoiler? Oh, definitely. I think he has very good chance. Does he have a chance to have twice or three times the votes that Ralph Nader got in 2000 elections that essentially ended the succession dream from Clinton to Al Gore? Yeah, definitely. And if you look at the momentum of RFK Jr., if you look at his messaging, and more importantly, if you look at how he has been responding to the recent verdict against Trump, man, I'm not discounting the possibility that RFK could be a big winner out of this, right? That Biden will not be able to create the enthusiasm factor, and then Trump's martyrdom kind of rhetoric and all may not still be sufficient to win over some of independents or some of the ex-MAGA people, a lot of whom are going to people like RFK Jr., right? So if you have watched some of the speeches of RFK Jr., you'll see a lot of people in his audience are ex-MAGA people or MAGA people who may not think that Trump is the best vessel anymore for the MAGA message, right? Now, initially, interesting, if you look at some of the reports, ang mas natakot kay RFK ay sila Biden. Kasi after all, RFK was supposed to be Democrat. He comes from the Kennedy family. He's from Massachusetts, right? If you look at his background, he used to be in environmental activism, etc. So initially, their fear was that RFK would be a bigger threat to Biden than to Trump. And in fact, yan yung mga nagsasabi na, nagsasalita ka na naman, Richard, ng CNN. No, this I'm showing. One criticism was this allegation that the Democrats were trying to block RFK from getting himself on the ballot, especially in some of the key states like Michigan, etc., battleground states which could define the direction of these elections. And the accusation was it was the Biden side who were trying to prevent him, or at least that's the allegation by the RFK Jr. camp, And also some of the investigative report by New York Times says a thing or two about it. Again, this is critical of Biden people. So dun sa mga syunga na, ano yan, CNN yan, mga ganyan. O di ano, Fox News lang kayo, mas ano pa, mas syunga pa. Balikan natin ito. No, going back to this, I think this is why I'm watching very carefully what RFK Jr. is doing. Because initially was seen as a bigger threat to Biden. And then later on, parang, wait lang, yung messaging niya ay mas malapit kay Trump. In fact, mas extreme pa siya kay Trump on certain issue. For instance, he's a total anti-vaxxer, right? And in fact, he felt Trump was not Trump enough during the pandemic period by allowing, I don't know, lockdowns, by allowing, Anthony Fauci, cabal, supposedly, mga ganon, imposing, restrictions on American liberties and freedom. So he's taking this kind of a very ultra-libertarian position, and some would say conspiratorial positioning, which has far more overlap with Trump narrative than with Biden. And more than that, interestingly, if you look at RFK Jr., right, yung personality niya, he's far more populist, at least the way he's appearing right now, than Biden. So in that sense, what I really think we should watch here is not only how the Biden and Trump team will exploit or leverage itong latest conviction to push for their own political agenda, except one side is, of course, criminally convicted, the other side is not. But what's also important to watch out for is anong gagawin ng mga third-party candidates to take advantage of here. Because RFK Jr. doesn't need to win 40%, 30%. He may not even need to win 15% of the votes to make a difference. Probably even with 10, 11, 12% of the votes, or even 6, 7, 8% of the votes in some of the key battleground states, he can completely change the direction of these elections. And in fact, I think the dream plan for the RFK Jr. team, and see, guys, I'm really following these guys because I'm really interested in what's happening here, because this could be another wild elections whereby a third-party candidate does something out of nowhere. I think the appeal of RFK could be so strong that he might even deny both Biden and Trump, right? He might deny both Biden and Trump the minimal threshold in terms of electoral colleges. I mean, that's their dream. That's their dream. So that they'll force, I don't know, another round of election. I mean, so I think we're really totally in uncharted waters here. So anyone who says, oh, tapos ng laban, panalo lang sila Biden, wala na si Trump, forget about it. They don't know what they're talking about, right? If there are others that say, oh, that's it, Trump is gonna harden his base, whatever. It's like, his base is already hardened. This is not about his base. This is about winning over skeptical Republicans. This is winning over independents, ex-Democrats, libertarians. That's the question here. I think the better analysis would be, how is this going to benefit RFK Jr. and third party, and how is this going to affect not really battleground states. Actually, if you analyze it properly, it's battleground swing counties. Really, really small towns, small suburban areas in Georgia, Michigan, again, Florida and Arizona, I don't know, but I think Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, it could be just a few counties which will decide the future of American elections, and by extension, the world. Now, everything I'm saying here is because, after all, ang Pilipinas ay aliado ng Amerika, right? So kung magulo ang Amerika, kung distracted ang Amerika, kung internally polarized and divided ang Amerika, kung sabog ang politika nila, even more sabog than we see, right? Whether si Biden ito or si, I mean, honestly, I'm not also excited about the Biden victory. I think he has shown tremendous amount of incompetence on many, many, many issues that I really expected more from him. From the withdrawal from Afghanistan to handling of the issue on Gaza, to also on the Ukraine issue in terms of ano ba talaga, are you going to give enough to Ukraine to beat Russia? Or if you're not going to give enough to Ukraine to beat Russia, then fast enough, then push Ukraine and Russia for a peace deal, right? On terms that it's least bad for Ukraine, right? So I just think there's so much dithering, there's so much incompetence I saw in the handling of another issues. I see also very weak narrative in terms of emphasizing to the American people that at least, you have an interesting situation whereby, although inflation has been high, growth has been also very robust in America. And if you look at a lot of other indicators, the US is not doing too bad. But weak narrative and weak social safety nets, especially for my youth. So one reason Biden is doing so bad in battleground states is a lot of Latino, African American teenagers and younger millennials. They're not doing very well. They don't have assets. They don't have a lot of savings. So yung 5% increase, 4% increase, my goodness, 7% increase in inflation is just crazy. It's so they don't care if the stock market is doing well. They don't care if property prices are. They're worried about their student loans, which, by the way, the future of the student loan issue is also not determined. They're worried about their everyday rent, their everyday expenses, etc. So naintindihan ko rin yung level of dissatisfaction, etc. So no, I mean, if Biden loses, I have absolutely no surprise whatsoever. As I said, from my own little understanding of a slice of America, from red states to blue states, my sense is enthusiasm for Biden is really, really low. And for me, the biggest shocker here is that here we are again, another election, and the choice is between Trump and Biden. I mean, out of 300 million Americans, this is the best they could do. And what's the sad thing is, as I said, mukhang kahit sino manalo dito, medyo gulo to. At kung magulo sa Amerika, guess who's gonna take advantage of that? Obviously, China. Obviously, Russia. Obviously, yung mga kalaban ng Amerika are gonna take advantage of this. And not to mention, kalaban ng Amerika, nakalaban din natin. Right? So you can easily say, okay, Russia, fine. Russia is not a threat to the Philippines. Right? Or at least Russia is not a direct threat to the Philippines. Although, some would say they were involved in some disinformation pro-Duterte stuff before here, but whatever. Si Mocha na lang kausapin nun. Anyway, but, yun nga eh. Pag sabog Amerika, mahina sila internationally. At kung mahina sila internationally, that's gonna affect their ability to be helpful to us. That's gonna affect their ability to be able to provide sufficient assistance for the Philippines. That's gonna affect their credibility to mobilize multilateral support for the Philippines on the West Philippine Sea issue, etc. That's gonna affect them, right? So, this is what I'm looking at here. Whoever, I don't care you're pro-Trump or pro-Biden. The fact of the matter is that a messed up America is bad for its allies, and we just happen to be in a country that happens to be a U.S. ally, and it's definitely good for China. It's good for Russia, right? So that's what you have to keep in mind. There are international implications here. Now, let me just end on this note. Wag na natin pag-usapan si BBM, parang boring yata sa inyo. Let's just talk about this. What I find fascinating are two kinds of Filipinos or Filipino Americans, right? Yung pro-Duterte pero pro-Hillary Clinton, right? Very interesting. Pro-Duterte pero pro-Hillary Clinton din noong 2016. Or potentially pro-Duterte and then pro-Biden ngayon. May mga kilala kong ganyan. Medyo matalino naman, in fairness. Hindi naman ito issue ng education or anything like that. I'm never elitist about that. I don't think having degrees and all is a good indicator of being a good person or having critical thinking necessarily, right? No. Right? You can be good in math but horrible in understanding history. So, no, it's not related. And you may be someone who never had more than high school education and have more than enough critical thinking and organic intelligence. So, no, it's not about that. So, there are two types of people I find very, very interesting. Pro-Duterte and pro-Biden/Hillary Clinton. That's one group. The second group, which is even more interesting, and I see a lot of them right now, is anti-Duterte pero pro-Trump. Right? And that I find very interesting. Right? Because if you look at it, Trump and Duterte are far more similar to each other than Duterte-Biden, Duterte-Hillary, right? And yet we have people like that who think like that. I think the logic for the first group is this. Dahil ang Pilipinas ay mahirap pa tayong bansa, for developmental reasons, you need kind of a dictator so that it cleans up the system so that we can move up. Ang Amerika naman, medyo developed na, so hindi na kailangan yan. So medyo pwede na yung mga Biden, Hillary type na ganyan-ganyan, right? So that's, I call them developmental, right, voters, right? Depending on the level of development of the country, they think you need different type of leader. in principle, it's not a crazy idea, except I'm not sure I agree with their Duterte understanding of the situation. Not to mention, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton too at all, right? I think Democrats could have chosen a way better candidate than her. Way better women candidate out there. So that's the first group. Hindi, never nila na-explain sa akin ng ganito eh. Pero yun ang pagkaintindi ko eh, na ang Pilipinas kasi, ang gulo tayo, pasaway tayo, kaya kailangan ng mga Duterte type, ganyan-ganyan. Yung pala, mas pasaway pa si Duterte, di ba? Sabog pa. Mas sabog pa. Hindi naman yung sabog na ganyan. I mean yung medyo kalat-kalat. The second group is interesting. Pro-Trump, anti-Duterte, or actually, pro-Trump and pro-Dilaw, right? That I find also very interesting. Na parang kunyari, gusto nila si Lenny sa Pilipinas or whatever, pero sa US gusto nila si Trump. And then I hear different kind of, so obviously parang gets ko now. They like liberals in the Philippines kasi because they're not Duterte, they're not Marcos and all of that. Alam na natin yan, hindi natin kailangan explain yan. But pro-Trump sila dahil socially conservative sila. And that's interesting because if you look at positioning of many Liberal Party members, even to a certain degree, Lenny, kunyari on the issue of abortion, and even on the issue of divorce, I think, conservative, socially conservative yung mga liberals sa Philippines. So in fairness, I see some logic because there's a certain degree of overlap between the social conservatism ng mga liberal as in liberal party type, no, or liberal leaning sa Pilipinas, and also the Republican Party in the United States. In fact, my sense is if the Philippines was a two-party system, karamihan ng mga middle class natin ay Republican. And if you look at social conservatism, I think the Philippines would have been 85% Republican, right? Philippines would have been a red state. I think the Philippines would have been a red state. I don't know, as red as Florida. I mean, maybe more like Florida tayo, di ba? In a sense na minsan purple lang konti pero really more red, di ba? So, yeah. So, I see why on the surface it seems totally crazy. But actually, if you look at the conservatism of liberals in the Philippines and pro-yellow or even pro-pink, middle class, it actually has more overlap with Republicans in the US than Democrats. And you see far more people in the Philippines not liking the whole woke stuff that we're seeing in the Democratic Party. And I've seen far more criticism of the OAC types or Bernie Sanders types in the Philippines than, say, Trump or something like that. So I kind of see the logic. But nevertheless, I find it interesting that considering what Trump could mean for immigration, for many people, including Filipinos, being able to go to the United States, for Filipinos to be able to migrate, for Filipinos na medyo tago na lang natin sa acronym na TNT ay magiging safe. I don't know. I find it just interesting, right? Na people are okay with the potentially a return of a president who's going to be even more aggressive on immigration with very stark implications for the Philippines. Because we're not Korea. We're not Europe. We're not an OECD country, right? Trump is going to be very strict on immigration from any developing country. Basta hindi ka mayaman na bansa or whatever, he's going to be very, very strict on that. So, I'm not sure how people are very happy about that. And then, katulad ng pinag-usapan natin kahapon with Hunter Marston, it is also very possible that under Trump, there will be a war, a major war, including the United States. Even if Trump is the guy who's supposed to be the man who will make the deal and all of that. I think we saw the difference between Biden and Trump is that Trump flirted with direct war in ways that Biden didn't. Biden's mistake was crime of omission. He was not competent enough in the withdrawal from Afghanistan or competent enough or strong enough to overrule Trump's badly negotiated deal with Taliban. The way Biden has been approaching allies in the Middle East or even in Ukraine, it's more a crime of omission of what the US is not doing or not doing enough, which is a problem here. With Trump, it could be a very different issue. So, I keep on hearing, but gusto natin si Trump kasi si Trump, anti-China yan, malakas yan. Okay, but when it comes to policies, first of all, when it comes to rhetoric, Biden has been also tough on China. So, I don't know what their logic is. Pangalawa, if you look at it, actually Biden has imposed far more sanctions on China. For instance, if we look at tech sanctions against China on China's semiconductors, all of this happened under Biden, right? A lot of economic sanctions against China is happening under Biden. So I just don't see the logic of saying, oh, I like Trump because he's tougher on China than Trump. And Biden is less tough on China than Trump. I mean, what is your evidence for that? That he said something tough here and there, like his gangster accent. Like, this is where I see people are not really studying reality, right? They're just going with their. Who is the guy who oversaw the creation of the Quad with the Philippines, the Squad? It's Biden. He's not Trump. I'm not saying this to endorse Biden. I'm just saying I just don't understand why people always say that Trump is tough on China and Biden is not. Biden is the one who's putting Philippines and Japan together with the Japan-Philippine. Under Biden, we're seeing this squad of Philippines. So again, I just don't see it. I think a lot of us are just socially conservative, ayaw sa mga Democrats, and then because Trump is the Republican guy, let's just go with the guy. Or let's be honest, maybe the Trump bling has done the magic on you guys, right? Siguro it's a matter of taste and preference, right? Na ayaw yung low-key old rich style ni Biden, mas gusto niya yung mga bling-bling style ni Trump. I don't know, right? And then of course you could also argue that, there was a surveys have shown that Filipinos among Asian Americans are the biggest supporters of Trump, right? Again, comparatively, right? So maybe there's also something about culture, right? Also there's something about our social conservatism and openness to kind of a populist leader. But yung argument na, doon tayo kay Trump kasi mas malakas siya sa China, like, anong basihan mo ulit? Who imposed more sanctions on China? It's Biden. Who has been more systematic in pushing back against China? It's Biden. I'm not saying Trump will not do that if he had another term. I'm just saying, what is your evidence to say that Trump is better on China than Biden? Biden is not the one with business interest in China. Biden is not the one who has a history of cutting deals and being enamored with dictators. Biden is not the one, by the way, this is Trump, who said great things about Xi Jinping, etc., right? Let's just be absolutely clear about that, right? I'm talking about now. Of course, Biden said some good things about Xi Jinping before when they're both vice presidents, right? But I'm talking about now. So, again, these are illogical statements, walang basihan or whatsoever, right? Now, again, this is not to say that Biden, yun ang maganda kung manalo sa Biden. I'm just saying, right, when you make political statements, make sure you can back it up with evidence, right? And then the other thing is, my worry again with Trump is that he's gonna pick wars with North Korea or someone in the Middle East or something like that. He almost picked a war back in 2020. Everyone knows the context of our conversation here. So even if he's actually, for the sake of argument, he's more anti-China. If he picks a war with North Korea or someone else in Middle East or whatever, he will be so distracted, America will be so bogged down that they will not be in a position to help us with China or help Taiwan, etc. So, still, it's not gonna be a good scenario. So, yung mga bye-bye Biden, mga ganon, mag-isip ka ng konti, di ba? Because you can criticize Biden all you want. I'm not a fan of a lot of his policies. But to say immediately that Trump is a better alternative, mag-isip naman kayo ng konti. Yun lang. And by the way, both of them are going to be in their 80s. I mean, Biden is already in his 80s, but Trump is going to be also in his 80s by the time he's going to enter his second term, if ever. So, if you want to use the age argument, I don't know. If you've watched some of Trump's recent speeches, I don't know. I mean, didn't he mistake this person with that person, Obama with Biden or whatever? I mean, I don't know. We can have a long conversation, but it's just sad that the world's most powerful country and supposedly leading democracy, because it's not really a leading democracy, and some question how long it will remain any kind of democracy, is a choice between Biden and Trump. And the third party candidate is JFK, Kennedy Jr., who's not necessarily also the most, I don't know, reassuring person, if I can just be nice about it, right? So, good luck na lang sa atin. Yes, tama. Talagang, kaya don't be emotional. Wag tayo makisali sa mga culture wars sa US. Just look at how bad this is going to be. RFK, sorry, I said JFK. RFK Jr. Look at how bad this is going to be potentially for the... Kaya nga sabi ko, regardless who's going to be, whether it's Biden, Trump, magulo to. And kung magulo ang US, hihinang US, that's not good for us. That's good for China and Russia. So ang pinaka-happy ngayon, si Xi Jinping at si Putin. They're gonna look at America and they're gonna have a good time with this. And if true na talagang meron disinformation, etc., my goodness. and mess up America is good for all of them, right? Kaya nga sinasabi ko, wag natin masyado i-idol din ng US kasi hindi naman maganda talaga yung political system nila. Kaya hindi ko maintindihan yung mga iba na sobrang believe na believe sa US and all of that, right? There's so many better political systems out there, which are, by the way, also democratic. Sweden, even Germany, despite all of these mistakes, I would say far better democratic system. Spain, I would say, has a far better democratic system than United States, etc. Yun ang mga dapat titignan natin, alright? Ayan naman. Anyway, everything I'm saying here is based on reading, 1,000 books or articles or whatever. Okay, so lahat yan ay based on research and everything like that. This is not something I just come up with, and you're more than free to read all of our articles and analysis for leading publications around the world, including in Hong Kong, including in Tokyo, including in Washington, including in Brussels, including in Singapore, on all of these issues that we discussed. On that note, thank you very much. God bless. God bless the Philippines, right? Because medyo, these are not very reassuring times. So I don't know bakit yung iba excited sa nangyari, because I think either way, dark clouds are gathering over the horizon, not only for the US but for allies and by extension the international order. Thank you very much, and yes, looking forward to having more conversation dun sa dalawang group na yan. Very interesting. Pro-Trump pero pro-Lenny rin, tapos na anti-Duterte, tapos pro-Duterte pero anti-Trump na Hillary, mga ganun, parang, ooh, there are people like that. Very interesting. Very interesting people. Thank you. God bless. And talk to you soon. And guys, please don't forget also to subscribe to us. Tuloy-tuloy lang yung support nyo. Bukas naman, God willing, we'll have yung parang illustrated edition natin with with Ronald naman. I will try to have it dun sa bulwagan ng mga bayani, mga ganun. So, of course, parating na yung Independence Day and Independence Week. Nagsimula na yung celebration of our national flag. So, medyo ganun yung mga context ng discussions natin. I'll see if I can make some part of my hindi, tin-tape pa namin malalive pa namin yan. Parang hindi. Maybe some parts lang. Tignan natin, alright? We'll try to set up something. Anyway, thank you so much, mga kameta, for your continued support and your subscription, your support and everything like that. And please, dun sa Spotify, yes, libre lang magbigay ng good rating if you think we deserve it. Libre lang mag-recommend and makinig. At hindi nyo kailangan ng maraming bandwidth dahil, although video nang in-upload ko, you can naman just listen to the audio, diba? So at least it's friendly also dun sa mga mahinang reception areas. Thank you so much also dun sa mga kameta natin, mga ka-deep divers natin, ka-D&D natin sa Cebu, from different universities who have sent their goodwills and invitations. So looking forward to, God willing, inshallah, having the opportunity to also have conversation with our friends there in Cebu, because Cebu is a fantastic place. It's cultured, great, economically dynamic, great podcasters, thinkers, university. So there's a lot to look forward to. Yun lang. So, looking forward, guys, and please continue to support us. Subscribe lang, libre lang, para tuloy-tuloy lang ito. Pati sa YouTube, please continue to subscribe to us. Richard Haydarian Vlogs, and Deep Dive naman. Just put Richard Haydarian on Spotify or Apple. God bless. Talk to you soon.